Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I still don't know what the hell happened. I was traveling north through the Lacandon jungle, intending to meet up with some family members to cross the border to the US. I planned to get a bus from the small town I was in to the one next over. I was waiting for hours after it was supposed to show up. Someone walking by had said there was an accident. That meant no bus till next week. My family expected me to be with them by Saturday. I decided to just walk by myself. I had survived nights in the jungle before. I had other people with me on those occasions, though. I figured since there was a few hours of daylight left, I'd walk until sunset, then camp out, then get up at dawn and be in the next town by noon. I bought a machete and some other supplies from the store and started my journey. The town I was heading to was directly north, so all I had to do was follow the big red N on my compass. I was several miles deep in the jungle when I got used to walking and my mind began to wander off. Suddenly I heard a branch break and I became aware of my surroundings again. I looked around, fearing I would see a panther ready to jump on me and bite my face off. What I saw, however, was much more strange. There were 5 people, 3 men and 2 women, walking in a line. They moved robotically. Branches of trees hit their faces and they stepped through large puddles of mud and water, yet they didn't react. They just kept moving, walking almost like toy soldiers. Their clothes were odd. Some of them were rags, whereas some were once fancy garments that were now caked with mud. One was shirtless, which, if I recall correctly, was not recommended by specialists and safety instructors because of the plants that grew in this area of Lacandon. I wanted to say something to them. Maybe they were going to the same place as me. I could travel with them, perhaps. They could possibly need my help. Despite all those reasons, something deep inside me told me to remain silent and out of sight. That feeling deep inside me wasn't quite strong enough, though. I weakly shouted out a weak "Hola." I regretted doing that before the words left my mouth. They all completely stopped moving in unison, then turned to me, staring with blank expressions. As a moment that felt like an eternity passed, I got the feeling that I was being stared down the way a cat looks at a wounded rat. I considered my options. I wanted to run, but that gut feeling deep down told me to stay put. I listened to it this time. After a while, 3 of them went back to ignoring me and presumed walking, and then were followed by the 4th. The man with no shirt kept staring, though. I began to notice that unlike the others, he had a subtle look of malice on his face, something like a thug planning to rob someone. He too walked, presumed walking. Unlike the others, though, he didn't take his gaze off of me. After they were out of sight, I looked at my compass. They were headed northwest. I likely wouldn't bump into them again if I kept on course. Eventually, the sun dropped out of view, and darkness began to consume the jungle. The journey up till this point had been going better than expected, despite those strange events. I had crossed a river that I knew was about 10 miles south of my destination. I set up my camp before it became too dark to see what I was doing. By camp, I mean a sleeping bag on top of a blue plastic tarp. I poured some animal repellent I bought back in the last town around the area. It was a mix of various rotting, decayed plants and meats, along with some artificial substances. Even roaches would sniff this stuff and turn the other way. After plugging my nose up and crawling into my sleeping bag, I was fast asleep. I drifted in and out through the night, sometimes opening my sleeping gear and peering outside to check if day had broken. I don't remember my dreams for the most part, but I remember one. I was underwater. It was dark, yet I could see the daytime sky. I tried to touch it, but the surface of the water was like solid glass. I feared I would drown for a second. That fear was gone suddenly. I now had a desire to turn downward and swim into the darkness. As I did, I heard whispering. I looked deep into the abyss and saw something massive slithering around. It looked like it may have been a giant sea serpent, but it was too dark to tell. The whispering ended, and I heard footsteps and the rustling of plastic. I suddenly awakened. I was somewhere dark and small. I quickly realized it wasn't my sleeping bag. I felt a few inches of liquid on the floor and something wet on the walls. I kicked around my prison until the top popped open. I peeked my head outside and looked around. There were white stone buildings overrun with vegetation surrounding me. I saw to my left and right there were large stone urns. I realized I was in one myself. I began to crawl out and thought to myself that maybe it would be better to stay in. Perhaps the people who put me here only did so for my safety and would come back. I quickly brushed off the idea as asinine, wondering why I would think such a foolish thing. I crawled out of the pot and looked at myself. I was soaking wet. My skin burned mildly, and my clothes were dissolving. I smelled sort of like strong bleach. I searched my surroundings, suddenly remembering that I was brought here against my will. I was alone. I examined the buildings around me. They seemed like Mayan or Aztec. They were white, stone, and old. But they were built odd. The way they were built looked nothing like the Mesoamerican buildings I had seen or read about. They were shaped like spirals, cones, and round pyramids. They all had one notable feature. There were black slanted spikes on top of them. They were all pointing in the same direction. I walked in that direction. I walked into a partially collapsed building. I peered through a window and saw a massive pit. I could make out water in it. There were urns like the ones I was in placed around the pit. I had this odd feeling. I felt like I should go into the water of the pit, bathe in it, get whatever liquid that was in that urn off of me. I dismissed the idea. It was ludicrous. Then something else dawned on me. Could there be other people in those urns? I should probably help them. They could be hurt in there. I was about to climb out the window when I noticed them. All of them. There were people standing on buildings, lots of them. About 40 to 50 or so. They were like the people I bumped into in the jungle. They were in tattered, rotting clothes and had dead, soulless expressions on them. Some were clearly different, though. There were ones who were partially or completely naked. Some looked like tribesmen, whereas others looked like they belonged in a big city. Some were even dressed like soldiers. Looking around, I could also see animals. There were lions next to smaller animals that would normally be their prey. They too had the same dead expression the humans all had. A group of about 5 people walked down the stairs leading to the top of the building I was in. I ducked down. 4 of them picked up an urn and carried it to about 7 feet from the pit of water. Something came over me. I wanted to run up to them, to greet them. I thought they could help me. though I really just wanted to be in that pool. I wanted to swim in it, to sink down to the bottom and see what lay in its depths, to be consumed by it. I was going to do it. I got ready to climb out the window. Then the fifth man, the man who didn't help carry the urn, walked over to it. I now realized he was naked, with the exception of a mask that looked like the skull of a large animal. He kicked over the urn. Its liquid spilled out along with something else. There was a man, only half of him. A torso, his left arm and his head. His skin was burnt and bloated. I recognized his face. He was the man from the forest. The one that didn't break eye contact. Suddenly he got up. I didn't understand how he could be alive. He crawled to the pit of water and raised his hands as if he was reaching out to heaven. I lost it. I ran out the way I came. I wanted out of this place, this city. Before I left the building, I looked out the window one last time. I don't know what I saw. I try to remember it yet, despite having crystal clear memory of every other thing that happened in that town. What I saw that moment is a blur. I know I saw what was left of that man getting taken and pulled into the pit by something reaching out of it. I can sometimes remember scaled skin or long sharp talons, but it hurts when I do. My mind burns when I try. I can remember something I wish I could forget, though. The expression on that man's face. He had abandoned his emotionless expression and was smiling. He looked as if he was crying tears of joy. I ran like I never did before. My back and legs began to ache, and I still sprinted faster than I ever did. I escaped the ruined city and found myself back in the jungle. I ran for hours until I saw a familiar sight. I saw a blue tarp near the bottom of a tree. I looked around the area and found my backpack. I took out my compass. I had come from the northwest. I headed north. Soon the sun began to set. I realized I didn't have my sleeping bag and began to worry. I didn't know what to do next. Would the people from the town come for me once night had come? I broke down. I began to cry, but I couldn't. Then I heard something. A motor. I followed the sound. I heard more. I began to hear people. Eventually, I broke through a tree line and found it. The town I was looking for. I said, fuck it. To hell with hitchhiking and taking buses. But most certainly to hell with traveling on my own. I got a change of clothes and a bath, then found a taxi driver. I paid him a third of what I had to drive me to where my family was. We spent the next day crossing the country. During our travels, he remained silent most of the time. Toward our destination, he started to ask me questions. He asked me how I got into town if the bus was down. I told him I hiked through the jungle. He acted surprised by this, asking me if I was for real. I told him yes, and asked why he was so shocked. He said that part of the jungle has a bad reputation. Supposedly part of a drug cartel used to stay there and moved out because half their members ended up dying. If someone gets lost in that area, rescue teams aren't permitted to search for them. There isn't much else to say. We reached our destination. I met up with my family. I was earlier than expected. We crossed the border. They were tense while doing so. I was indifferent. The idea of getting arrested by Border Patrol seemed somewhat moot at this point. It's been several years. I got a girlfriend. And several years later, lost a wife. We have a kid I still spend most of my time with. I've researched those areas quite a lot. The story the driver told me about the drug cartel going there, then leaving after losing several members, holds up. There are many disappearances in those areas. Both civilian and government officials have investigated it. I've tried to get into contact with them, but they refuse to talk about it. Some even say that they have orders not to talk about it. There are no reports of any ruins or cities in that area. On the contrary, I've found evidence that the Mesoamerican and even South and North American Indian cultures revered that place out of fear. Evidence suggests some Mayans called it Xibalba. They believed it to be hell. I agree with their assessment.
I asked my dad about spooky stories from his old job and his new one. I can post a bunch if you like this one. Dad was a border patrol agent years ago. One night he was sitting in a camera room up on top of a mountain. They had numerous cameras spread out along the river near the outpost. Dad is sitting watching monitors all night. Lots of nothing for about 4 hours. Suddenly, a group of illegals show up on a screen. He sees them crossing the river. He radios the patrol nearby. They say they are on their way. He notices something weird on a different camera. It's a beam of light from the sky. Do we have any helicopters out? No. Do you guys see the light coming down over by camera 2? No, we don't. Dad sees the illegals moving towards the light. The light shrinks down and looks like a bar of white bouncing up and down on a hill. The illegals appear on the same camera as the light, but at the bottom of the hill where they can't see it yet, if it is even able to be seen. They get right up next to it. Other Border Patrol agents get to the hill. Dad and all the other agents watch the illegals all start flipping shit. They all scatter, they catch 2. The rest jump into the river. They ask them why they got scared if they saw the agents coming. One of them replies, "No, we saw a devil come from the sky." Dad never volunteered to be the camera room guy again. Dad at his same old job. His friend starts telling him about all sorts of horrible Mexican urban legends. La Llorona comes up. Dad blows him off, tells him how shitty his scary stories are. 2 weeks later, with the same friend on patrol, they are told a woman is out by the river by a rancher. They go out. They drive up and down for miles. Nobody. They get out and walk around. Hear a baby crying. Hear a woman singing in Spanish. Can't find anyone. They can see all up and down their area and can't find anything. Dad says it started to get louder and louder, like she was heading towards them. Still nobody. Finally, it gets quiet. They radio in that they heard stuff, even start reports on it while sitting in their truck. They are told over the radio that a woman was seen again further up the river on a dirt road. About 6 miles away, they drive over. Same story, nothing to be found. They radio in once again that they can't find a damn thing. They get out of the truck to take a look near a dry creek bed. Pitch black. Possibility of being killed by Mexican drug lords ever present. They hear a woman talking again. Sounds like the same voice. They run towards it, screaming for her to stop, in Spanish, of course. Still nothing. They get sick of chasing this lady, about to head out and go get ready to end their shift. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream that my dad says has given him nightmares to this day. They call in helicopters, more agents, dogs, and sheriff's deputies to search. They think a woman and baby are hurt. About 60 people search all night and into the next day. Nothing found.
Be me. 6 years ago. I remember the exact date, but that's not relevant. Traveling a lot for work, mostly in the southwestern U.S., sometimes in California. Mexico once in a while. Have to go to Colorado. Normally I'd fly, but I thought about driving since I've got some friends in northern New Mexico. I leave from Flagstaff, northern Arizona, since I was staying there at the time. I decided to leave in the evening after an early dinner. That way I can hit northern New Mexico early enough to meet with said friends, have some drinks, then crash that night and be up early enough to leave for Colorado in the morning. About 30 minutes from the New Mexico border, still in Arizona. I've heard stories about bad shit on the res, people going missing, brutal murders, whatever. I'm really not worried about it because I'm still a skeptic. Plus, natives just want to be left alone, so I don't even consider it a threat as long as I stay off this shit. Again, about 30 minutes from the border, heading east. Deserts at dusk are beautiful. Eerie, too, especially that critical moment between dusk and actual darkness. Inklings of light over the mountains, but you can see the stars. Obviously dead out there. Nobody on the road except for the odd car every half hour. Fairly close to the border of the Navajo Nation. But again, not in it. There's really no point to go there anyway, since you have to go kind of off-road. And I was driving a sedan. Got some tunes playing. Driving a little faster than I probably should have. I start looking out into the desert to admire that sweet desert landscape. Cactus. I notice a figure in the distance directly to my right, like square in the middle of the passenger side window. Not weird, since people go out to the desert to shoot and whatever else. Probably just a native walking around. My eyes linger on the figure for no more than 3 seconds. I don't want to crash, so eyes back on the road. 20 minutes from New Mexico at this point. I drive for at least another 5 minutes. I specifically remember the song changing and finishing. I look to my right again. Same figure. Maybe hard to tell as it was getting dark, but why the fuck would there be a line of people out in the desert around dusk? I'm going around 72, so the figure I saw previously would have to be behind me at this point, not still parallel. I'm starting to get a little spooked, but again, total skeptic. I'm not expecting to see shit, so why would I? The figure starts moving. Again, I'm going like 70. So not only should I not notice it moving, it shouldn't be apparent to me at all. The figure keeps pace with my car. I slow down a little to try and focus on it a bit. The figure starts getting closer to my car, still a good 100 feet out. It's fully running alongside my car, but not closing the distance between us quickly, kind of just observing me. I'm not scared at this point, genuinely curious as to what I'm seeing. So I slow down a bit more, maybe 50 or 55 at this point. I'm a good 5 or 10 minutes from the border at this point. Not that the border has anything to do with it, just as a point of reference. The figure gets slowly closer to my car, maybe 50 feet at this point. I'm alternating between watching the road so I don't go flying off it, and keeping an eye on whatever I'm seeing. At this point, I can make out features. Large chest, broad shoulders. Estimate height around 6 feet. Definitely a male. Wearing plain clothes, jeans, patterned button-up shirt, brown boots, everything you'd expect to see on an early 30s dude in the Southwest. No weird mask or headdress or anything like that. Just a normal-looking native guy. The gap has been pretty much closed while I study the guy. He's 10 feet from the passenger side of my car, sprinting alongside me, jumping over bushes, staring intently at me, not really breaking focus. I mean, he'll glance ahead of him, but from what I can tell, I've been the one who's mostly breaking eye contact. At this point, I'm freaked. No human can match the speed of a fully accelerated car. I don't really have an option other than to keep driving and let him run alongside me. Obviously, I'm not going to get out of my car. I see the sign for the border and pass it. I glance at the dude again, and he's still there. I drive for another 3 minutes, maybe. Another glance. I fucking kid you not, I watched this guy drop to the ground and turn into a coyote. Like the way a person's entire body weight drops when they get shot in the head or trip over something. It was like he lost all muscle control, completely pulled towards the earth, and he's a coyote. It wasn't instant, like within the blink of an eye or anything, but it wasn't slow either. Obviously, I just figure I imagined the whole thing. Why the fuck would I have seen something like that? I can't see a coyote anymore, so I figure that thing is just gone. Totally behind me at this point. I still have another hour or so drive ahead of me. Heart racing, trying to justify what I just saw. Full rationalization mode at this point. Eventually, I just cooled off. I met up with my friends at some shitty bar and grill. I'm sure I look a little visibly spooked to them. They ask, "What's up?" Blah, blah, blah. I give a half-assed answer about being tired, long drive, or whatever. I don't feel like trying to justify it since, like me, they're all fairly skeptical. We don't talk about /X/type shit. The night goes on. Totally boring. Off to Colorado, and I never see anything like it again. Sorry there isn't a huge conclusion here. That's about it. Of course, I did some research later on. I still do. That's why I clicked the thread. Shit kind of interests me. Growing up in the Southwest, you hear about skinwalkers, but I never gave them much thought, since I figured they were some easily explained thing. The desert can definitely play tricks on your eyes. Maybe that's all it was, too, just me hallucinating. I don't fucking know. But I get legitimately scared when I see coyotes now. Dogs and wolves freak me out a bit, too, since they're pretty much the same thing. I wish I had an explanation, so I could have some kind of resolution. Fuck the desert.
I used to live near the border of Canada. An absolute ton of Native Americans up there. They've seen some serious shit. I mean some legit shit. One of their stories is about this large-ass bipedal, 10-foot-tall super coyote known as the Eater of the Dead. Said Eater of the Dead exists to go from graveyard to eat the bodies and souls of those who did not follow the customs of their forefathers. Anyway, so I was headed home one night from seeing a friend. This was well after midnight, the witching hour, I think you lot would say, somewhere between 12 and 1 at night. It was pitch black as northern Minnesota is wont to be late at night since there's fuck all for light sources there. Only the pale moonlight of a full moon. Now, one thing I would like to mention is the place I used to live at is right near a cemetery, a fairly large old one at that. So I walk past the place and I see some weird conglomerate of colors. Like silver and red and gray and a couple I'm not sure I can describe to this day. The closest I could think of is gray transparent. It was in splotches all over the creature. We are talking about the largest furry-ass thing I have ever had to look at. This is considering that if you've ever lived in a rural area for longer than a little bit of time, odds are you hunt and you see gigantic things all the time anyways. It turned towards me and those eyes, man. Think a mix of coyote eyes and cat eyes, but the exact wrong color, like red on shadow that I couldn't see. I heard a guttural sound. It was deep and dark in a way that isn't something you hear from something in this part of the world for sure. So I got scared shitless, and I ran. I ran so far away, I ran all night and day.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.